Hello and welcome back to the Chatgate podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews and discussions. I'm your host, Dranking Thomas Hughes, and today I'm going to be continuing on from where I left off last week. Obviously, last week I covered the first Venom movie starring Tom Hardy, which came out in 2018. And obviously, I said I was going to be moving on to the sequel this week, and I am. So today I'm going to be covering Venom: Let There Be Carnage. The movie was released in 2021 following delays due to COVID. Obviously, stars Tom Hardy, Woody Harrelson, Naomi Harris. We do have Michelle Williams back very briefly, but we still have her back. And of course, focuses heavily on a more iconic symbiote character than Riot last time, because we get Carnage this time. You know, it's in the title, Let There Be Carnage. Obviously, this time we have a new director stepping in, taking over the director's chair. Obviously, this time, instead of the Zombieland director, we have Andy Serkis. And I couldn't be happier. I love Andy Serkis. I love him from, obviously, his motion capture performances. I'm talking about Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, King Kong in the Peter Jackson remake of King Kong, Caesar in the Planet of the Apes trilogy, and even these live-action performances. Obviously, Alfred recently in The Batman, obviously, Claw in Avengers and Black Panther. And obviously, there's one movie I've written down here I want to bring up that he was in. There's a film called The Cottage. If you've not watched it, it's actually pretty funny. It's a horror comedy. British horror comedy from like 2000 and... I want to say 8 or 9. One of those years. So it's quite old now. But it generally is really funny. It's over the top, campy horror. But anyway, back on this movie, as I say, we got Tom Hardy back as a titular character. Woody Harrelson continuing on from where we left off in the last movie, reprising his role obviously as Cletus Cassidy, who obviously eventually becomes Carnage. And as I say, we do have these other characters stepping in. I said Naomi Harris is here. She's playing Frances, aka Shriek, another iconic character. And then we have Stephen Graham stepping in as Detective Mulligan, someone who, you know, is working with Eddie, but at the same time hates Eddie. Like, it's one of those relationships. Obviously, this movie offers us a much shorter runtime than the first Venom movie. This one clocks in at just under 1 hour and 38 minutes, compared to the predecessor, which was an hour 52-ish, I think it is. This one's like a whole 14 minutes shorter. But I don't think that hurts this movie. Sometimes a shorter runtime can mean you don't get as much packed into a film, but because this isn't an origin story, obviously, yes, we're getting the origin story for Carnage, but since this movie is fully focused on Venom, there's no need to pad out the runtime with unnecessary backstory of filler, because realistically, the backstory for Carnage, they get crammed out. It's less of Carnage backstory, it's more of Cletus' backstory. Because obviously we need to know who Cletus is, why he's in prison, why he's going to get a death sentence. Because obviously we only got a brief glimpse at the character in the last one during the end credit sequence. And that was just like, that basically gave us a minor detail just to go, okay, if you don't know who Carnage or Cletus Cassidy is, sorry. This is like basically a quick idea of who he is, how much of a dirtbag he is, how much of a psychopath, more specifically, he is. So obviously this one crams a lot of that in a lot shorter than you might expect, so it's not like dragged out. I mean, there's literally one sequence that straight away just tells you his entire backstory. When he's younger, obviously why he is kind of as deranged as he is, because there's a whole backstory about his upbringing, i.e. the murder of his grandma, the murder of his mom, the beating he's got from his dad. Obviously, that is all shown during basically a drawing sequence, which is actually pretty cool, because the art style they use for the drawings of this animated sequence kind of shows and sums up how deranged and fucked up Cletus is in the mind, because it's a very dark animated sequence, and as I said, the drawings are very rough around the edges and kind of evil looking, which, as I said, does sum up his deranged mind, which I really like that sequence. I thought it was really cool. Um, obviously, I something written down here, which obviously I found quite coincidental. Obviously, the last movie, obviously, as I say, was directed by the Zombieland director, who of course worked with Woody Harrelson, in Zombieland and Zombieland 2. Obviously, he stepped away for this one, and Andy Serkis came in. So they also have a working relationship similar to obviously the Zombieland director, but obviously instead of a directing relationship, obviously Serkis worked with Harrelson on the War of the Planet of the Apes movie, because Harrelson was obviously the big villain of the penultimate movie of that trilogy. So I kind of find it funny that they went from obviously having a director who obviously had directed Woody Harrelson to having a director who's actually literally starred opposite him. I just find that quite funny and very coincidental, basically. But it's just something that made me chuckle. I was like, huh. It just came to my mind. So I just thought, I'd jot that down and bring it up. Obviously, this movie, there's a lot more emphasis on the comedy. I spoke about it last time in the first movie's review, where obviously I noted that the tone of the first movie was very dark, a bit more grittier. Yes, there was a few bits of comedy here and there, mainly when Venom was on screen, but a lot of the stuff around that was a bit more grittier. Whereas this one, yes, that grittiness is slightly still there, but there is a heavy amount more emphasis on the comedy, as they particularly with Venom and Eddie, when they're always bickering and arguing. Obviously, Venom trying to do it his way, and Eddie trying to stop him from doing that way. Like, no, you can't just eat people like this. You need, there's rules and shit like that. Like, that goes more comedic this time, because he gave us a brief glimpse of it last time. This one definitely gives it a bit more, which definitely leads into that buddy cop vibe that was there in the first one. Because most buddy cop movies, you've always got the more serious detective, and you've always got the more basically idiotic detective. I mean, look at Lethal Weapon. Obviously, you've got Mel Gibson's character who's a bit more basically the idiot. He's not idiotic like a moron, but he's a bit more stupid because he's unhinged. He doesn't give a shit. Then you got obviously Danny Glover's character, who's the more serious cop who wants to get the job done the right way. That's basically this. In this case, Eddie is the Danny Glover type character, and Venom is the Mel Gibson type character, the Maverick and the straight edge, basically by the books cop. Which I like. I like that, because as I say, with the fact that most of this movie is them two talking to each other, that's kind of the one vibe you're always probably going to get from this type of movie, is that buddy cop situation, because yes, they might not be well, they are two separate individuals, but in the same body, you're always going to have that two conflicting sides. Because as I say, you got Eddie wanting to live his life one way, you got Venom wanting to live his life the other way. So there's always going to be conflict between them. And I do like that. And I mean, their relationship in this one, again, is shown to be all over the place. They're still not at the point of on the same wavelengths at all. And I don't mind that. Obviously, as the movie goes along, they start getting to more of that. Especially when you start looking at Cletus and Carnage's relationship. They're very early, straight on the same wavelength. They're both unhinged as fuck. They both want to basically murder people and kill people. So they are very compatible. But then obviously there's still those moments, just like Eddie and Venom, where they both disagree and stuff. In this case, it's more over Shriek, particularly for the fact that she can scream, and that screaming obviously is noise that fucks up obviously the symbiotes. So obviously there's a lot of conflicts there between them, but most of the time they are very much a tight unit. Whereas I say Venom and Eddie, I mean, throughout this movie they're not really, until pretty much the fight sequence, which is just very similar to the last movie. They weren't a unit really until they got into the big battle. There's a lot of obviously early on, obviously, of Eddie and Venom kind of trying to understand each other. And in this one, they understand each other. They just don't get along a lot of the times. But when they do get along, they can literally do anything together. I mean, there's a scene in this movie where, without going into too much detail, where they obviously solve the cases regarding Cletus's past victims. And that is from them both working together. That's Venom spotting stuff Eddie hasn't spotted, and Eddie using his, obviously, reporter skills to piece it all together properly. So, as I say, when they work together, they are basically like Carnage and Cletus early on in this movie. But most of the time, they are just bickering because, as I say, they are this buddy cop situation where they're always going to be at each other's throats over something that the other doesn't like. But that's fine, as I say. There's no point in them being... That's the funny part of it. There's no point in them being this cohesive unit constantly, because that's obviously for the fact, obviously the vibe they're going for, they can't do that. They have to save that more for the pivotal moments, which, you know, it makes sense, really. But I did like this, where we do get some more of Venom coming off Eddie's body. So what I mean by that, well, I'm trying to adjust my hair behind my ear, because one strand of hair is doing my fucking head in currently. Obviously, in the first one, we got to see like a shot, obviously, of Venom's face and a bit of the, obviously, symbiote coming out of, obviously, Eddie's body and talking to him face to face. And we do get a lot more of that in this movie. And not just, obviously, his face coming off. Obviously, in the first one, the bike chase scene, when he comes flying off the bike, obviously the tendrils come flying at his body and attach to the bike to bring him back to it. Obviously, we get to see a lot more of that in this. Not just in battle sense, I mean, just like everyday life. I mean, there's a scene in the police precinct when, obviously, Eddie's walking behind Detective Mulligan and Venom shoots off his back. I think that's in the trailer. And obviously he tries to eat Mulligan, and obviously Eddie has to pull him back. The cooking scene, which again I'm pretty certain is in the second trailer. I don't think it was in the first trailer. Obviously Eddie's just kind of just like, you know, tired, moping around, and you got Venom fucking just doing the cooking behind him really badly, I might add. But obviously he's still coming off the body, and I think that for me works, because obviously you don't want to not have Venom present consistently like he did in the first one, because the first one was about an hour into the movie, I think I clocked, before you really got Venom properly. So with this, they could easily have done that and just save Venom for the big moments, or you can look at it and go, okay, we've clearly set up a way of Venom being able to be seen while also being able to see Tom Hardy, because I mean, you're paying this guy big bucks, you're going to have him on screen, as well as the character that everyone's there to see, which is Venom. So this, to me, is the easiest way of them balancing these two characters, because you get both on screen at the same time, and you get more of them arguing, but face to face, not just in his head, which, you know, you can have that consistently, just him arguing with him in his head, but seeing the argument face to face is more funny. I mean, there's a scene in this where Eddie's having a go at Venom, and you see Venom's a tendril come out, and it's basically like a hand, and just giving the middle finger like that. And for me, that was just quite funny. So obviously, you wouldn't be able to get any of that if it was just they kept Venom to being just in Eddie's head until he came, obviously, and covered the body in symbiote goop. So I say for me that just works better than, I say, just the bickering in the brain, because yeah, no, Eddie's the only one really visibly seeing him like that all the time, because everyone else, it's just the communication afterwards. It's like, oh, what did he say? Oh, he said this. It just, you know, that works for me, because, you know, it's just cooler. And it shows off more the digital effects, which, again, are pretty solid in this movie. Which, as I said, with them doing that more often, the digital effects have to be spot on. And for me, Venom is pretty much spot on. There's a couple of shots with Carnage when I was just like, I don't know if it's because of the lighting, because obviously they use a lot more of the dark lighting, and scenes set in the dark to help the CGI stand out a bit more in a good way. But obviously there's a scene in I think it's the prison break scene, when he's kind of just walking through the prison, and the lighting, I don't know, I don't know if it's because obviously him being red compared to Venom's much more black goop, and even like Riot, it wasn't like bright silver, he was kind of like dark silver, but I think because Carnage is a little bit at times more of a brighter red, it looks a bit, I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just something I noticed and something I clocked when looking at it. But other than that, I think the CGI is pretty much spot on again. So that is a good thing. What else did I write down in my notes here? Oh, the Woody Harrelson hair change kind of froze me. I don't get that at all, because obviously the last time I saw Woody Harrelson, at the end of the last one, obviously he had a bit more of a longer sort of hairdo, a bit more stand out. Whereas this one, when we get him instantly, I mean, if I get the DVD case up, if you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see. But I mean, if you look at his, if you look at his hairdo there, obviously it's a lot more shorter, and I don't know what the explanation is to why his hair has changed since the last one. Something I noted, which they could have probably done, was just had him cut the hair after he got free or something. But for some reason, they just have him with short hair. I don't know. I think I prefer the long hair. That just worked more for me. It made him look. I get the idea. Maybe it's just because this short hair looking as weird as it does, it makes him a bit look more unhinged. But I think the longer hair also made him look a bit unhinged, because he looked kind of weird, but in a good way, a good weird. So I just don't know why they changed the hair, but it's a minor change that you can just look past. Mainly if you ignore the end credit scene to the last one and treat the start of this, when obviously Eddie is sent to speak to Cletus, as the first time they're meeting, which I'm pretty certain is meant to be. So if you ignore the end credit scene, you can take that as not canon. Then you can look past. But if you don't treat it as non-canon, then it's just a weird change. What else have I got here? Already done that. Obviously let's go back to Carnage. Obviously, the reveal we get in that prison sequence, which, if my memory serves correctly, Sony actually released these prison break sequence online prior to release. I'm guessing just to generate some buzz for the movie, because this movie, as I say, came out in 2021. Obviously, it had the issues with COVID delaying the movie and shit like that. And obviously, at this point in 2021, yeah, a few films were making a decent bit of money, but nothing was making the big bucks. Nothing was making massive amounts of money, which is why a lot of films were being dumped straight to streaming, or were doing like a joint streaming release while being in cinemas, which, I mean, some films still do that now. It's not as much, but some films still do it now. Most now just tend to have like a couple of weeks in cinema. If it hasn't done like massive, they'll throw it on digital. If it does massive, then they'll leave it a little bit longer, then go digital. But this one, I think, was one of those ones that basically had its cinema run. It had a few weeks being in the cinema, and then it eventually got dumped on, obviously, on demand. That's where I saw it. I saw it on digital. I never got to watch in cinema. I spoke many times about Spider-Man being the first one I actually jumped at in cinema, which I'm guessing is why they put out the clip online. I'm guessing it's a mixture of trying to get people to go watch it. If you hear my chair squeaking, I'm apologising. This chair is fucking uncomfortable as fuck, so I have to keep moving and it makes it squeak. Obviously, where was I? Fuck. The squeakiness distracted me completely. Money. So obviously they probably weren't expecting it to make a big, like, compared to the first one. I mean, the first one had like $800+. I think this one was it over 400? Was it over 300? Between 3 or 4, between 4 and 500. I can't remember exactly. So it wasn't like the exact same amount, but obviously I'm guessing they probably thought, okay, maybe if we put this scene out, like this really fucking like cool scene of Carnage just going around just fucking everyone up, then maybe people go, oh, you know what, actually, I might go and watch this one in cinema. But obviously it didn't work as much, so most people probably just wait for the digital release. But still, I still enjoyed it. I would have liked to watch it in cinema, because other than this and Morbius, I watched all this universe in cinema. I saw all 3 of the recent entries, the mixed bag of Madam Web and Craven, and then the pretty decent finale to the Venom trilogy, Last Dance. I saw all 3 of them in cinema. I saw the first Venom in cinema. Obviously, Let There Be Carnage and Morbius were the only 2 I never actually got to watch in cinema. Let There Be Carnage, as I say, it was during the COVID period where I just wasn't risking it. Spider-Man was the big one. I was like, I ain't fucking missing that. Whereas Morbius was the case of, I think there's just better films out at the time that I was jumping at more than going to watch Jared Leto run around as a vampire for a bit. But still, So obviously that was them trying to generate buzz, and it just didn't work as much as the first Venom movie. I don't know if it's might have been the case of people. I say it was a mixture of probably COVID and people obviously watched the first Venom movie. So the ones who liked it probably went to watch it, but then the ones who didn't like it just didn't bother turning up for the sequel. Either wait for it to get digital, or just didn't wait for it to watch it at all. So obviously the critical reviews were a bit better on this one, not massive better. They're a little bit better. I mean, I think Rotten Tomatoes, they are the highest of the three Venom movies, but they're still not high. I think overall, I think this is probably the highest critical scoring for this universe, and that's saying something that it took a sequel to get the highest one. But then again, I prefer the first movie to this one personally. That might change in the ranking at the end, but we'll see about that. So yeah, but still, that scene when he comes out and just destroys everything is kind of how you want Carnage to be introduced. You want this, like, showing how much of a monster is, how much he can just destroy everything in his path. I mean, the first shot you get of him when he comes out of the darkness, when his hand hits the wall and he just comes out and just roars. That is just it's so good. And then obviously on top of the destruction, you've also, as you got the horrifying sequences of obviously when he's killing people. Some of the ways the one way he specifically kills this one guard is quite horrifying. And I feel like for the character of Carnage, you need someone like that. You need this big introduction. And for me, it does it spot on, really. Obviously, someone I mentioned it in the intro. Obviously, Stephen Graham stepping into this movie as Detective Mulligan. Obviously, he's such an underrated British actor. He's such a good actor. He's always a standout in the projects he's in. And I'm happy to see him in some more big movies like this. Getting some big, getting a big screen appearance in a movie that you're gonna draw the audience. And I mean, I think after this, he got the role in The Irishman, didn't he? Which obviously went to Netflix and cinema at the same time. If I remember correctly, don't quote me on that. So I'm happy that this was a good way of getting into the big screen to get into a more bigger audience. So he's done. I mean, a lot of his TV shows he's in are pretty much fucking top notch. And he's someone who can be serious and someone who can be funny at the same time. And this is one of his more serious roles, and he nails it perfectly. What else we got? Oh, and another British actor. I noticed then another British actor that pops me in a little cameo at the end. Obviously, Reece Shearsmith. Fucking love Reece Shearsmith. He's so funny. He was also in the Andy Serkis movie The Cottage. He was the more comic relief in that one. He was the more idiot of the characters. Similar to Eddie and Venom, Andy Serkis was the more serious character in that movie, whereas Reece Shearsmith was a more idiot. He was a more Venom character in that movie. And obviously, I just love that. I just love him as an actor. He's so fucking funny. I mean, he was recently in the Wallace and Gromit movie as Nobot. And, he didn't have a massive amount of lines in that movie, but he, fucking gave it his all. I mean, I grew up watching League of Gentlemen with him in, and that was fucking hilarious. I mean, Hayden and I covered the 2 House of Falls episodes on the channel, which he was also in. He's such a good actor. I was so when I first saw this movie and he popped up, I was like, no fucking way. Like, I fucking love Reece Shearsmith. So I was just fucking happy he popped up in it. It's not like a massive fucking deal. He's just like a priest at the end during the final battle. But the cameo is a cameo. It was a good, like, it made me smile basically. That's as simple as it is. It made me smile that I saw him in this movie. Fucking loads of British stars in this one. What else? Obviously the final fight basically offers similar thrills to the Venom versus Riot fight from the last one. It's got the symbiotes battling, throwing shit at each other, fucking going to town on each other, and then on top of that you throw in sequences of Eddie and Cletus fighting, which is similar to the last one when I was pointing out. Obviously I like seeing Eddie with the symbiote attached to him, obviously battling and brawling with I can't remember the geezer's name. Obviously not the actor but the character. Is it Carlton or something stupid like that? I can't remember. Something Drake. That's what I don't remember. Something Drake. I don't remember his character too much because he wasn't like a massive. It was more you're there more for Riot. You're there for more the symbiote side of it than him. But obviously, this offers the exact same. Um, allows Eddie to show that he can still handle himself in the fight, but also shows how unhinged Cletus is. Because I mean, the last fight, obviously in the first one, it was just a basic brawl. Whereas this one, you're throwing stuff like Cletus putting a bag over Eddie's head. That just shows the difference between him as a villain and the first movie's villain, because this villain is more psychopathic. This one is more of a fucking serial killer. So the easiest way to show that is showing him willing to literally kill Eddie during obviously this one-on-one fight. Whereas in the last one, you never really got to see that. It was just both. It's got their punches in, both got the kicks in, both got their arguments in. Whereas this, as I say, they're doing it again, but this time you're going one step further and showing Cletus literally trying to kill Eddie. So I like that. But it was just a good solid fight, and then you got Dan, Dr. Dan, jumping in on this one as well. Because the last one you had Michelle Williams' character helping out in the fight, but this time she's more of the damsel in distress type character. As they literally give her such little screen time and not much to do in this movie compared to the first one. Which, if you're watching the third one when she's completely not in it, you wouldn't be looked down on saying, well, she wasn't really missed in this one. You could literally wrote that character entirely out of it. But so that's a shame, really, because she didn't do too bad in the first one, because she played that generic like love interest or former love interest character to the main hero, similar to the likes of Rachel McAdams in Doctor Strange, Liv Tyler in The Incredible Hulk, Gwyneth Paltrow in Iron Man. But at least with Gwyneth Paltrow, they eventually did turn into a rescue. Whereas this one, yes, I know she becomes She-Venom, not once but twice during her 2 stints in this franchise. But so this one, she don't do much with her. She's at the start, and then she pretty much just comes into it right near the end to build up to become the damsel in distress character. Whereas the first one, I felt she was at the start, and I felt she appeared in the more middle section when he was kind of having this breakdown, and then she came back for the finale, so she was in a little bit more. Whereas this one, she comes into it early, doesn't come back into it then until pretty much late on. So they could have easily just reiterated in that opening section and just found a different way of getting Eddie into that final battle. But it allowed Dan to have some fun with some fire, which is pretty cool. What else? I'll tell you what, autocorrect does my head in sometimes. I put here, I do like the final battle, the shot of Carnage in front of the stained glass window. Really fucking cool shot, really good. Presents in the trailer as well. But my autocorrect has changed shot to shit, so my note says I do like the final battle, the shit of Carnage in front of the stained glass window. Fucking autocorrect. But yeah, there's the shot, it's in the trailer, of Carnage just flying obviously towards a stained glass window, using obviously his tendrils to stop himself from going through it. And the shot with the light on it, that time I'm not going to complain about the light on Carnage, because the light made it look so fucking menacing and so cool. It was just one of those, really cool shots. Your classic superhero landing type shot that makes you go, oh, that's like a really cool shot. This for me is one of those ones. Just about the actual landing part, it's more of a villain just stopping himself from crashing through a window before sending himself flying back at the hero. So yeah, I just love that shot. It was just a nice little cap on the final stages of the final battle before obviously we got the big final outcome, which obviously obviously wrapped up the Carnage and Shriek story while also setting up another symbiote for the sequel, which we don't get the exact symbiote in the sequel. It's a completely different one, but it was it's a hint at that character will return in this different type of role, which despite the fact in the next one it's a completely different symbiote character, I'm still happy we got the character back. Most times movies tease stuff like this and just don't do anything with them. I'm happy that this one actually does something with them, particularly because it's the certain actor, which I'm just happy to see back again. So obviously this one again offers us another Eminem song, because why the fuck not at this point? And then on top of that, after the end credit scene, which I'll get to in a minute, we get another song which just has Venom in the title. Well, the main word that's the main lyric of the song is just Venom over and over again. So they love plugging the songs with Venom into this franchise, and they love plugging Eminem into it. Specifically the first two. Third one, they just go away from it entirely, which, if you're going to cap off a trilogy, I'm generally surprised I just didn't throw another one in, but that's a completely different story, so I'll get to next time. But yeah, obviously the end credit scene, obviously a huge tease for Spider-Man No Way Home, but it obviously didn't do really much for Venom. Obviously it teased the possibility of, Spider-Man and Venom encountering each other, but obviously we all know, from obviously the No Way Home film, that nothing really happens. It's Venom's saved for an end credit scene in that, which they then use for the opening of the next movie, which I'll have to get into when I talk about that one, because the opening obviously is a lot different to. There's a lot of changes in that opening to the end credit scene, but it was, despite the fact that the end credit scene doesn't really lead anywhere, it leads obviously to the possibility of Venom now in obviously Spider-Man's universe, but it doesn't lead to much going forward in the actual Venom universe. Despite all that, it's still a really good, solid end credit scene, because you get the Cletus Cassidy on the first one, which was a big tease for Carnage coming to the second one, and then obviously you got this really cool. If you ignore what actually came from this scene, you got a really good tease of a Venom Spider-Man encounter, which would be the first time since Spider-Man 3 by Sam Raimi in 2007. That was, if I remember correctly. So it would be the first time since then we got obviously them two opposite each other. I say, if you ignore the fact that you don't actually get to that point, it's still a really good end credit tease for obviously No Way Home. It's basically easy marketing for No Way Home, while also possibly hinting at for fans what they could expect, despite the fact we just don't get that. But still, it's this sequel. It's an overall it's a solid sequel. It's pretty much equal to the first one. Though I did like the dark tone of the first one, I do prefer Carnage to Riot as the villain. Though I do like the fact that Riot could make different fucking blade and spike weaponry all over his body. That was pretty cool. I think just the fact that I prefer Carnage as a character makes me go, I prefer Carnage to Riot. That and the human side, I preferred Cletus Cassidy to the billionaire character in the first one. But other than that, Andy Serkis delivers a solid movie. I mean, this was only his second directed movie, which is third movie he's ever directed. The other two being, I think it was like a romance one and the Mowgli movie on Netflix. I'm happy he got a chance to direct a big movie. I mean, he's directing the fucking Lord of the Rings Gollum movie, which comes out next year, I think it is, 2026 or 2027. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I'm happy that he's taking a step into the director's chair as well as continuing on with acting. I just love Andy Serkis. He always delivers when you need him, and it does with this movie. So, on top of that, Hardy delivered another good performance. Again, for the fact that he's the main centre point, human side, not counting Venom, he'd have to deliver spot on, and for me, he does. The bickering just between him and Venom is just really fun to watch, and it's helped by him delivering the lines perfectly. And the scene when he's trying to fight Venom while Venom's attached to him, it's just fucking good. He can deliver the serious portions of the character while also delivering the more comedic side when required. So I think I'm gonna give Venom Let There Be Carnage another 8 out of 10, similar to the first one. Venom once again proves to be the bright spark of basically a very unnecessary Spider-Man-less universe by Sony. So rating wise, I'm going to knock Venom Let There Be Carnage into second. I am saying again, I'm going to prefer the first Venom to this. Though I say I do like Carnage over Riot. I liked a lot of the tone and a lot of the origin story stuff in the first Venom. So I'm going to put that just over this one. So obviously I'll run through the ranking again. So if you look on the screen, you got number 4 on its own little slide at the moment until the other two movies come in. We've got Kraven the Hunter. Number 3, Madam Web. Number 2, Venom Let There Be Carnage. And number 1, Venom. So yeah, obviously, if you've seen Venom, let me know in the comments below. Venom, that'd be Carnage. Let me know your comments below. Let me know in the comments below. Sorry, I'm fucking all over the place. Your thoughts on the movie. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? What would you have liked them to have done in this movie differently to the one they actually did? And obviously, next week I'm going to be moving on to Morbius. I'm going to put. Obviously, I said I think during the Venom one that I was going to be doing Morbius before I do the final one because I'm just waiting for the Blu-ray to arrive, and that will arrive next week. And obviously, I wouldn't have time to actually sit down and record a review, so it's easy for me to just sit down and do Morbius first, and then wrap us out with the final Venom movie. Obviously, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, etc., etc. And obviously, you can also check it out on YouTube. You can see my ugly mug for however long I decide to keep talking for. So, yeah, obviously, I'll as always link the other movies in this franchise in the description below. So there'll be a link there for Venom, Madam Web, and Craven. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. I hope you enjoyed this review on Venom at the Carnage, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.